Hi, everybody. It's Rob with R3 Shorts. Remember us? Sorry for the big break. We'll call it a break. Yeah. So, where have we been? Well, I have a lot I want to say in this update video. So, for those of you who just want to hear about Book 7 details and Animorphs only stuff, there's a timeline down here and there's chapters in the video, and so you can just skip to where we start talking about the Animorphs book. This first part is going to really talk about what happened. Basically, everything was going fine in 2023-ish. In the fall, I did the update video talking about how I was recording Book 7 and I was fighting allergies and things like that. So on April 3rd, 2024, I came down to my remote office in Tennessee, which is where the studio was, and I tried to log on to my work computer. I'm kind of a support engineer with a very popular tech company, and I couldn't log into my computer. I thought I had put the caps lock on by accident when putting the password. I thought that I put the password in wrong, tried a few times, nothing was working. And so then I found out that I had been hit as part of a massive wave of layoffs. You know those. So that was a real jolt to our plans for R3 Shorts and things that were coming down the pipe. And in the months leading up to that, I was ironically looking at possible roles in a data center context and being a part of that data center growth and expansion that's happening in this country. And when that hit and the company gave me 8 weeks to find something else before they would thrust my severance on me, I jumped at that. And so that led us to selling our house and moving up to Columbus, Ohio. So we are now in Ohio. We started R3 Shorts in Los Angeles, then we went to Washington, then Tennessee, so now Ohio. We're all over the place, guys. So we spend all that time moving up to Columbus and getting situated. I had to move up ahead of the family. I had to start working the job and things like that, living with extended family for a little while. There was just a lot of time-consuming things. And then the nature of the job also took time away from continuing the R3 Shorts, continuing Book 7. Basically, they had asked me in the interview, because I did so well, they said, "Are you comfortable working nights?" And I thought, short term, so that I still have a job? Yes. But long term, I have kids to tuck in. So, let's talk. Here we are a year and a half later, and I'm still doing 12-hour night shifts 4 nights a week. So, it has taken a toll on my body. I have drunk a lot of energy drinks and coffee and eaten a lot of junk that you probably shouldn't be eating, just to make sure that I stay awake overnight and keep that clock, that biological clock, going so that I can perform at work. And it's wreaked havoc on my body. So all that weight that I had lost to digging that trampoline, for our diehard fans that know that, gained it all back. So it's been very hard trying to figure out how to balance R3 Shorts with this job that I'm doing. I also spent a lot of time studying for my first official certification in IT, which is called the A+ certification through CompTIA. It's split into 2 cores. I took the first core and passed, but that took a lot of my time. And I'll be trying to get the second core in the spring so I can have my first IT certification, which will really help me career-wise. So there was that. Another huge thing that happened was we had a 5th child. So we now have 1 boy, our eldest, and 4 little girls. My son and I live in the estrogen ocean. So anyway, that was a big deal. She was born in August of this year, and so while we're trying to finish up Book 7, there she comes, and we're at the hospital, and there were a couple of little complications here that we didn't foresee, and so we had to stay there an additional length of time, or I should say my wife did. I was able to go home. And Ruth is asking for me to bring her MacBook Pro at the hospital once she's stabilized and everything, and she's just working on artwork from the hospital for book 7 while she has nothing else to do. And so we've had book 7 just on our minds, wanting to get it out there, get it off the books, so to speak. To be clear, the book was actually recorded in its entirety before I got laid off. I had actually started about 2 days worth of editing on book 7 when I got laid off. And then it just came to a screeching halt for about a year and a half. So there's that. Another reason that it took so long was we've encountered different logistical issues where we're living. So we are now in kind of a small-ish 1,300 square foot apartment in Columbus, as I said. And so we got a lot of neighbors. They're never really quiet. Not a dangerous neighborhood per se, but still it can be loud. And we got cars going by and things like that. So I definitely can't really record. But we've also had issues with just trying to find the time to do the editing and more mixing and things like that. And so one of the things we did in the spring of 2025, like almost every day, I would come home in the morning at like 7 in the morning, and I would have just finished a 12-hour shift. And then I get a mug of coffee and I come over here and I sit down at the iMac and I would just edit. I would mix, I would put in sound effects, etc., etc. And I was doing this for many, many months. I finished the audio for book 7 around the end of April. Then we decided that we wanted to go on a road trip around the United States in May before the 5th baby came. And we were going to be kind of locked down. So we did that. And we had the understanding that when we came back, then I would take over, watching the kids on my weekends while Ruth would focus on the artwork. And so it was Ruth's turn to do the work on the book. And that way the children were not without both of their parents doing this project that's not their job. And so we're trying to time management. So now we get into book 7, talking about that and why I think it's our best work yet. I look at this as our magnum opus, and there are a few reasons why. First and foremost, we put more work into this one from an audio and a visual perspective than all the other audiobooks combined. And I mean that. We've blown the doors off of the amount of artwork from Ruth that is on showcase here. And we'll go into that a little bit. So normally how we did it in order to, function as a family was I would juggle my job and then the audio and recording that, and then juggle my job and then the editing and mixing. When I was done with everything that I needed to do, I could pass the project off to Ruth, who would then get started on the animation at the time. And she used Adobe Premiere Pro, and she used After Effects. We have since cut ties with Adobe in that regard because we really didn't care for the fine print of the Adobe Terms of Service and how you have ownership of your stuff, but they have a mandatory license in order to use the stuff. A lot of fine print and legalese that just made us uncomfortable. We didn't want to mess with it, didn't want to deal with it. So we left that, and so our Adobe Photoshop is now Affinity Photo, and our video editing software, or Premiere Pro, has now transitioned into DaVinci Resolve. And so that software has been really fun for Ruth to get to learn. And so when she does this, in the past, she has taken a scene, traditionally the scene from the inside cover of the book, as you hardcore fans would know, and she would just make a creative animated sequence that would then loop with little gags in here, here and there, like the Anole lizard stepping in the gum and stuff like that. And it would just be on a little bit of a loop for every single chapter. And then around about book 5, we started messing with different angles and things like that. And in book 6, we really got creative because we started doing a few different scenes entirely. Well, when we got to the point where we felt we had kind of fallen off the radar and I hadn't given our audience any updates whatsoever, I felt like we had a blank check to do something completely new. And so this is not going to be like any visual Animorphs audiobook you've ever seen before. There is going to be unique, static, but moving artwork for each chapter in the book. Every chapter is going to have a unique frame, a unique setting with the characters drawn in based on what happens in that chapter. And then inside that image, in addition to just panning and scanning and maybe zooming out and zooming in, Ruth has put things on sort of a 3D gimbal. And so she's able to separate those assets or rather load them in separately, backgrounds versus the kids versus animals or aliens as separate assets. And she moves this 3D gimbal around to give the feeling that you are in this 3D space. And so the most time-consuming stuff actually was the drawing and the coloring. Because once she puts it into the computer and the image is done, then she can tweak it and move the image around as she sees fit, and those are easy edits. But the drawings take a lot of time, and the colorings have to be right. And it's almost like a behind-the-scenes documentary for like a movie where like I'm playing director, and so she's asking me, where should Marco be standing? Where should Cassie be standing? What's the posture? What's the mood on her face? What is, what's happening over here? What should be happening in the background? What should we be seeing? What angle? And I have to kind of set the scene and play Spielberg and say what the emotion is going to be. There have been times she's constructed a complete picture and it looks gorgeous, but Rachel's face is conveying an emotion that I did not believe she should be conveying. So we have to erase that and change the eyes, change the mouth, and okay, that's good. Can you brighten his hair just a bit? Lots of tweaks, and it's really been a fun little back and forth. The other thing was the vocal performances. I have poured so much sweat and throat coat into really focusing on these characters and really getting them right. There are moments in this audiobook where you will hear a delivery of a line, and it could be narration or somebody talking, and I would have done 20 to 30 different takes of it back in Tennessee to get it just right. And then there are other moments that just hit that sweet spot, and I nailed it on the first take, and I didn't want to mess with it. And so this audiobook, this one's going to flow kind of like a movie in a way. There are going to be a lot of moments in it where for the first time, the music or the sound effects or whatever will sync up with what you see in the image. The image might pan at a certain time. It might shake at a certain time. Something might appear at the moment it is described in the book. We haven't really done that before, except with a couple of gags, like I mentioned with the Anole lizard stepping in the gum. Yay. So this, a lot of love and care has gone into this, and I have no idea if we will be able to sustain this level of creativity and work in the future, or if we will have to revert to just one image for like the whole book. But we really wanted to pull out all the stops on this one and do something we've never done before. And the last reason I think that it's the best is because I've sunk more of my personal funds into getting more sound effects libraries. And I have gotten thousands of sound effects, and hopefully it shows or sounds like it. So what does the future look like for our 3 shorts? We don't know. What we can tell you is that there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening. First and foremost is our family. We have 5 kids now. We have 2 awesome border collies. They're pretty cool. And we want to focus on the kids. We don't want to deny them that childhood, that attention, because this is not our job. We're at the point where if the best thing in the world happened and I got some kind of benefactor contract or whatever to do these audiobooks full time, that would be great, but just for me, for the audio. Ruth would not be able to maintain a steady stream of output for the artwork because she wants to be mommy and I want her to be mommy. The kids need their mother. So we just going to keep doing this at the pace that we're able to. A married couple doing this for free, because that's something to make crystal clear to the new fans that we've acquired. This is not a full-on company. This is not a big team. We are a husband and wife couple. One of us is taking care of everything audio. The other is taking care of everything visual. That's it. We have no other resources beyond ourselves. And so we're trying to figure out the best time management for that alongside my career, making sure I keep my job and all these other things. So that's going to take priority. So I'm going to be trying to get this A+ certification in the future. But I do have an organized plan for the next 4 videos in kind of a behind the scenes kind of way. So I definitely want to do a Behind the Voices Volume 2, kicking off with, how I came up with the voice for Axe and a whole bunch of characters. I want to do a behind the music to explain where all those music themes come from, because every once in a while somebody comes up with a comment saying, "What is this theme over here? Where did you get the music for this? Is that royalty or is that copyrighted music?" I want to explain where all the music themes come from. So there's that. I also kind of wanted to do this vanity project. Who am I kidding? These are all vanity projects. Where it's like kind of how I came to discover Animorphs, how Animorphs entered and impacted my life. Because there's a kind of a fun story there in my relationship with the books and how I raised money to get them every month. And so that'll be a fun thing to come out with. Also, I'd like to do a behind the artwork with Ruth if she's willing to be on camera for a while, so that you can see her process for making the artwork and see her inspiration and where she kind of got the ideas for how to draw the Animorphs and how to draw Visser 3 and the backgrounds, the blade ships, all these things. And, how much of it was her looking to me to describe it, how much of it was her taking inspiration off of the words on the page, and then how much of it was Pinterest. So, yeah, it'll be fun to see her side of the story. Huge important thing is we need to figure out how we're going to work the recording logistics for book 8 in a multitude of ways. Because first and foremost, I'm still working nights. And so it would have to be either when I get off work in the morning, when I record, and that's when everybody's waking up and the birds are singing and cars are going and whatever. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Or it's on the weekend, and that's more time that I'm not really spending with family. So we have to figure out how we're going to record and how we're going to get the quality of the recording. We kind of found a couple of options as far as like places in the local Columbus area and nearby suburbs where there's like these small businesses that offer the ability to lease out a room, and you pay it's almost like a monthly rent kind of situation. And you can just put all your equipment in this room and you have a studio. I'm pretty sure most people use it like bands for recording their songs, but I can offload the equipment in there and lock it in there, and I have it for a month. And so if I can bang out however many audiobooks I can in a month, in 30 days, that would be cool. Get like 2-3 books ahead of it and then just have all that stuff to edit. Other thing is, we're trying to figure out, okay, when are we going to leave this apartment? Are we going to buy a house here? Are we going to move again? What's going on with my job? What situation are we going to be in to where am I even going to be recording here when the time comes? But the biggest blocker that is going to prevent any future audiobooks at this time is the iMac. That iMac is about 7 years old at this point. I got it back in 2018. It had 8 gigs of RAM on it, which is laughable right now. If you're not a computer person, don't worry. 8 gigs of RAM, not impressive. And it's not just the RAM, is video drivers, parts that are going bad anyway. It's slowing down. I've tried to use external terabyte hard drives as much as possible so that I'm not storing stuff on it and taking up hard drive space. Doesn't matter. Things just get old. So when book 7 was completely done as far as the project, like I waited till the end of the project, I had to do a massive update in 2 areas. One was the Mac OS, which is basically the Apple, operating system. And the other one was for Pro Tools itself. Pro Tools releases a lot of patch updates. It's software as a service, so it's a live kind of thing. And you just keep downloading patches. They had massive updates over the past year and a half, and I didn't do it. You don't want to do that when you're in the middle of a project, because if you're halfway through a project and you do a massive update to the next big version of that software, it may not work anymore and you can't go back to a dumber version. It'll break your project. So I waited till the end. And sure enough, when I updated both the Mac OS and Pro Tools, the hardware buffer, the RAM, couldn't handle the recording and the playback anymore. While I was trying to print out all the chapters and give them to Ruth, it was crashing every 30 seconds or so. And so I'd have to print up little chunks of each chapter and then sew them all together afterward and then bounce that out. Anyway, so it will be impossible to do the next audiobook until we get a new iMac. I'm even doing the sound for this update video using a documentary sound guy style mixer that you would have on your hip when you're working on a film set or something. You can see the iMac is off behind me. I can't use it because I was trying to record this audio for 30 seconds. It crashed. So we need to save up money or raise money to get an updated version of the iMac with all the bells and whistles, which will probably cost in the realm of $2,000 to $2,500. And so that's got to be done as well. So please, please, please enjoy book 7. If you want to binge it, binge it. If you want to take it in little sips, chapter here, chapter there, please do. Just know that we'll be able to do these behind the scenes videos, but before we do the next book, book 8, something's got to be improved on that iMac. I would also like to point out that I have a renewed optimism for the possibility of us getting some kind of traction with Scholastic to do this. If you have seen on Audible or Amazon recently, they actually just came out with a full cast recording of the first Harry Potter book, The Philosopher's Stone. And so you have a full voice cast in there, but they already had a couple versions, didn't they? They've had the American version for a while, narrated by Jim Dale from the original Pete's Dragon, and they have the British version, narrated by Stephen Fry. Yet, they came out with the full voice cast recording, which has sound effects, ambiance, music. So, there might be a possibility that I could get in touch with Scholastic again, saying, look, I know you already came out with these audiobooks where it's just a person's voice narrating with nothing else. Here's another version that you can come out with that's got music, ambience, and sound effects. And we can see where that goes. I might possibly open up another change.org petition like one of our fans did many years ago, that we could be kind of, a more official audiobook with Scholastic. So lots of things coming up. Some of them good, some of them ambiguous. I'm not that negative about it. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do. And until then, I'm optimistic. And we just want you to fully enjoy Animorphs Book 7, The Stranger, dropping on New Year's Eve next week. So until later, this is Rob signing off.